Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes.
Welcome to the channel. I'm PJ here with the Shuffle Squad, and we're going to be talking about all things meta going forward. We have a special event coming up this weekend in Lima. We're going to be talking about all the decks that came out of Baltimore and what you should be preparing for, whether you're headed to cups, challenges, playing your locals, or actually just going to Lima and playing the special event. So we're going to talk about every single deck that we can squeeze into this short time frame and why you should be playing it, what decks, all the fun stuff. We're all here to have a great time. None of us are getting banned on this one today, but we're just going to keep on rolling here. So the first guest that I have here joining us all the way from the other side of the world, compared to me here, we have Brent Tonisson. Brent, let the people know where they should know you from and why you aren't banned. No, I'm just kidding.
Hi, I'm Brent. You probably hear me as, I guess I'm Mr. Worldwide now, is what I've been coined with the streams and everything. I finished rank 1 in the world, and I guess that's it.
Yeah. Very important player, somebody you should definitely take note of when they're talking about decks too, because you have a phenomenal skill for picking the correct deck for whatever tournament, or at least try to. Then on top of that, we do have TSS honorary TSS actual member, right? Dre Clout. Dre, let the people know where they should know you from.
What's up, everybody? King Dre Clout. Just first starting off, whatever I say today, hope I don't get banned. Just putting that out there. But yeah, I stream on Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff. A few top 64s, top 16, 17, back-to-back world invites in my 2 years I've been playing. Still pretty new to the game, but I think I've been doing pretty good. So
yeah, tends to play good decks, right, Dre?
now I do.
Now playing good decks. And last but certainly not least, from the up north area of North America, we have Sneaker Talk, also known as Christian. Christian, let the people know where they should know you from.
Hey, so you guys might know me from my YouTube channel or see me on Twitter every now and then. I post a lot of Pokemon content. I'm known for being a Miraidon enthusiast, and I play in Toronto, so it's forcing me to get good quick because there's so many talented players in the greater Toronto area. So yeah, people know me as the Miraidon guy. That's pretty much it. Or Sneakers.
And there definitely is a lot of great players in that area. Toronto is one of the more heavily populated, high ranked player area in especially North America, but most likely the world. But yeah, so as far as it goes, we've got a awesome panel. We're going to talk about all the decks. So let's get started over there and talking about what came out of Baltimore regionals. We saw that happen. We saw Joinville and we saw Dortmund. All of these decks started to come together. We saw decks build off of one another event to event. And the question that's on my mind first, and I'll kick it off to you, Brent, is why are people still playing Raging Bolt? It looks like the conversion was absolutely horrendous, but it is still looking like it's a pretty good deck for this upcoming weekend. So what are your thoughts on Raging Bolt?
Well, I think if you look at them on paper, it's actually quite solid. It doesn't really take any hard negative matchups. It's pretty even to... It's like either slightly negative to favorable across the board. However, I think the reality is that in a lot of your losses with the deck is just because you missed the attacks early on. You don't hit the pieces early, and you're not beating players. Like, you can't consistently win to get the high enough win rate to get the top tables. Like, there's just a certain level of play that you can make to win games, but you're not winning when you're just going attach pass on turn 2 or going second against a lot of these decks. So you're just getting run over too often. You might, maybe you end up somewhere in the 60s in the win rate, and then you get like a top 128 or 256 or something. But if you're looking for the higher finishes, I just don't think the deck has that kind of win rate to get enough players over the line and into the higher placements.
Yeah. Would you also go as far as to say that because Raging Bolt is such an easy deck to pick up, that players going to these events are just picking it up because it's probably the most powerful and easily obtainable deck, and that might be why those conversion rates aren't necessarily showing from day 1 to day 2, because the higher echelon players are not picking up Raging Bolt.
Yeah, definitely. So because of that, and because the win rate is going to be so much tied to how well you draw, it means that it's going to be played by these newer players, or not as or inexperienced players, and this is obviously going to end up being worse for the deck's win rate and conversions in the long run. Whereas
Absolutely.
the higher level players just do not want to pick it up because they do not want to settle with a 60% win rate. Because if you play it well, maybe you have 60%, but that's not good enough.
Right. Now, thinking about the deck a little bit further, Dre, I wanted to ask you this question about Raging Bolt. Now, we saw a couple of new cards be sprinkled into Raging Bolt. Are we looking at something like Lima for a special event? Are we looking at spicing up the deck? Do you think that players should take it and adapt, maybe put some Knockdowns in there, maybe put the Briar in there? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I have tested the deck with like that, especially on the TSS stream. I did the Noctowls, and it was okay, but like it never felt like the owls were doing enough for me that I felt like I was getting like enough usage of them to like increase my win rate. So it's like the cards are probably just not worth it. You need to keep Raging Bolt as streamlined as possible because, like Brent said, like you're hoping to hit these combos. You need to get those turn 2 attacks. The owls probably aren't really doing that for you because you're not going to use them on your first turn going second. You just need to make sure you're not missing the attack when you're playing that deck. So I think Briar is like a needed card because it's the only way you're going to be beating Charizard, probably like for the most part. So that's one matchup that gets a lot better in this new format. Uh, Playing Bolt going into Lima and going into like Louisville, these next 2 majors, I would still think it'll be the number 1 deck probably in both.
Yeah. It was
Simply
very
because
surprising
the
beforehand, right? Like we
yeah.
didn't expect it for Baltimore.
Yeah, well, then the play rate is just like the amount of people that play it, it's like really high. But also, it's Dragon type Mew is kind of like the thing I've been saying for a while. It's like you get to play the game more times than you don't. That's where a lot of those wins come from. Is like you're going second and you're doing the thing more times than your opponent is. You're going, especially if you're making them go first and their deck doesn't like to go first. And sometimes you can just run away with it if you're going against Lugia, Drago, any of the other 2 prize decks, and you're just running them over. If you go against Zard or Dragapult and they just go Zard, Mander, attach, pass, and you donk them. So it's the stuff like that is like what's enticing about it. And then of course it's not super difficult, but like Brent said, like a lot of the like higher tiered players are not going to pick it up because you can't really skill express and like find your way into those top tables with that deck. It's just not going to happen. You're going to play against Charizard players that are going to play around getting as long as they don't get donked like the turn 1 KO. There's plenty of like other ways, if you're playing against the Terapagos, even the Terapagos matchup seems awful because they can force a 1 prize board until they're ready to put the Terapagos down. So it's just like right now it's good if they started Terapagos, but you're kind of hoping they do. So it's just like it's really a hot and cold deck. I think it'll still be number 1 just because a lot of people like it and a lot of people can play it. And the way I look at it is, if you want to make day 2 Raging Bull's okay deck, it'll probably get you there. You still have to like draw hot and high roll, but it'll get you to day 2. But you're not winning the event. And like Brent said, you're probably not getting higher than like a 128, most likely.
That's very fair. Now, going over to you, Christian, I want to ask you, because you're a turbo deck enjoyer of sorts, right?
Yep.
You've played some Mew in the past. You're playing Miraidon. Keep playing Miraidon, and we get it. But as far as Raging Bolt goes, I know you've been playing in a lot of local events, obviously cups, challenges, things like that. Do you think that Raging Bolt maybe is better suited for an event like that? That's a smaller event, lower sample size. Just go big, fast, and hard into these cups and challenges, other than doing a special event or a regional.
It's one of those decks that can really benefit from like those best of 1 formats like challenges in your locals, because if you win that coin flip you're going second and you can really consistently set up on your first turn going second, so being able to donk and just steal wins is really easy to do. But in a 2 out of 3 format, it is a little scarier because of course there's a lot more decks that you can bump into, and the player caliber is much higher on average as well, especially getting into day 2. So again, like getting into day 2 shouldn't be insanely hard, but getting those high placements, top 64, that's where the lack of skill expression in the deck, because it's so linear, because it relies so much on things like Pokestop and getting the energies in the discard with Sada, that you can't maneuver some of these new decks out there. And I think one of the big reasons why the conversion rate is so low on Raging Bolt is because all the actually like good players are not going to play a deck that has so much variance involved in if you win or not. They're going to pick decks that have more lines of play to win, no matter what the circumstance. And it's kind of like how a lot of Miraidon players switched over to Raging Bolt because it became more consistent. You're not relying on generators as much. Now you're relying on things like Pokestop and just kind of drawing hot, maybe your Pokegears, hitting the Sadas when you need to. So it's like one of those decks that's so inviting and beginner friendly, but the peak of its power level is capped pretty hard.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to convert too well either, but I would expect to see it in the top 3 meta share for the upcoming events.
Absolutely. Now we're going to flip the script here a little bit, and we're going to be talking about Terapagos. Now, Terapagos had the opposite effect where we saw the conversion rate go a little bit further. So, Christian, back to you with Terapagos, seeing some of the decks that came out of not only Joinville, but also Dortmund. Are you looking at Terapagos as one of those higher placing involvement decks, meaning that there's going to be more of them at these upcoming events because we figured out how to make Terapagos good?
I feel like a lot of players are going to look at towards 60 and go from there. And it really reminds me of, what was it, Inteleon with shady dealings and stuff like that. So the skill expression is insanely, insanely high. And so I think the people who are going to play the deck are going to be very good. And the conversion is also going to be quite good as well, because you're not going to want to pick up that deck and not be very well practiced in it. So if you're picking it up, you really want to know it, kind of like how you have to know how to play Lost Box really, really well. There's very little margin for error, but it's a deck that can kind of like steal wins out of nowhere. You know, with the Dusknoir package is disgusting, and being able to use Noctowl is insane too. So there's games where I think I'm in a very commanding lead, and then all of a sudden they just pop their Dusknoirs and stuff like that, and then I'm like, wow, I thought I had it, but now I don't. And they got to use Briar sometimes when I didn't want to get them to 2 prizes on, or myself on 2 prizes. It's just like they get to bring out an ADP style closeout when I did not want to see that. So it's a scary, scary deck in the right hands of a skilled player.
Yes, and I know that Dre, you didn't play necessarily during the time of ADP, but Arceus Dialga Palkia Tag Team GX was a card that made some people actually quit the game because of how crazy the actual games were. It was like a 2-turn game most of the time. So people didn't really want to play to get the combo off. Now we're talking about getting that combo off, so we have to talk about what techs are being played in this style of deck. Have you personally tried any specific counts of things? I saw people going up to maybe a 4/4 Noctowl count now. Putting in that Vitality Band, anything crazy that you've kind of seen coming out of these Terapagos decks?
Yeah, the Vitality Band definitely is like the easy to go to, just so it's obviously going to be the mirror match tech. But it's really just going to be dependent on the players that pick up the deck. I, like Christian said, if the people that are going to play this deck are going to be well versed in the deck, they're going to be really good players. Because it is really nice when you're a skilled player and you are playing against somebody and you steal a win by like backing them into the corner, forcing them into like taking 3 prizes, and then you get to Dusknoir, pop them down to 2, use Briar, win the game, stuff like that. And then they may think they're winning, and then you come from out of nowhere and take like a 4 prize turn or something crazy. But the another thing that's going to be like a main issue is that a lot of people are going to pick this up. They're going to see towards 60, just pick it up and take it, and then there's going to be a lot of players. I think the conversion rate for Terapagos is actually going to be lower because of just like the net deck, thing that happens. People are going to grab it. It's the best deck. They're going to think, and a lot of people are not going to play it optimally, and it's going to result in a lot of mirror matches. And then that's where like the techs get really weird too, because Vitality Band's an easy one, but I've had people ask me about bravery charms. I'm like, no, why would you do that? There's buffaloes, and then I personally don't like the buffaloes. I'd rather have that bench space for my more hoots and Noctowls, just so I can just chain them continuously and just keep my combos going, making sure I'm always grabbing what I need to do, and I can pick apart your board in the mirror match. So it's going to be really, really intricate the way the mirror matches work out because of the Briars, because of picking the way the Dusknoirs can pick off each other's boards and trying to leave, you want to starve each other's from his boards because your attack is based on it. So text wise, Vitality Band seems okay. don't put Bravery Charm. Buffalo's is good. I mean, Tord did well with it. I just think I want more owls. I'm a big owls fan.
That's fair. Go Owls. Now, going over to you, Brent. Talking about this deck, do you think that it's kind of in the same realm as something like a Zoroark GX used to be back for people who were playing in the Sun and Moon format, where it's just kind of like an S tier deck? You can do so much with it within a turn. You can really cherry pick your deck for a lot of stuff between the Pidgeot and the Noctowls. Do we think that this is going to be a BDIF?
And I do think it's probably closer to like Palkia and Teleon than a Zoroark deck.
Yeah.
I do think it is quite flexible in a lot of ways like that, and it plays very aggressively with the Noctowls and the tempo, kind of like Palkia. So I guess the hard thing is really deciding like the card counts with this deck, because this deck is a lot harder to refine than a lot of the other decks we've had recently. In general, when you have basically unrestricted search, the deck lists are much harder to refine. Like you look at Charizard, how long did it take for us to get good Charizard engines? It took quite some time. It's because like no one had a clue on what they were doing with the engine, and like the first big development was really the Brazilians like William Azevedo, Pedro Patucci, and maybe a few others from. And yeah, there was like 5 Charizards in top 8 at that region. It was like all the way last year. And then from there, everyone's like, oh, so this is how we play Charizard. So like it does feel like everyone's already made a lot more progress towards this deck than they did with Charizard at the time. But there's like a lot of cards that like, you know, cards like the Vitality. So like for example, in the Charizard now, it's like, oh well, like basically everyone plays the Defiance, everyone plays the Collapse. It's like, well, when do we figure out, oh, these are the one-off like fringe tech cards that we should always be playing? Right. And I'm not sure we're there yet, and I think that's what we got to see if someone basically comes up with something, and I think the deck can go even higher.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do think there's more potential than what we've seen already in the deck. I really think that there's a couple of extra cards that could be sprinkled into a Terapagos deck, and I do like the fact that you brought up, you know, Palkia and Teleon, because that deck, I mean, I will have to say, Brent, you and your group kind of innovated Turbo Palkia at one point, I believe.
Yes.
So we had Turbo Palkia.
Look, they use the Dusknoir. That's basically the same engine. It's literally the same thing. It's the same thing, basically. Like, yeah. It's still based on that idea from back then.
Exactly. And I mean, there's so much innovation that we can see. Maybe we'll play an Arven engine, probably not, but still, like, maybe that could be a real thing in the future. We'll find some sort of supporter that just clicks. Do we play Jack? Who knows? Maybe not. But we could still see something like that go into a Terapagos deck. And even with Dre and I in Baltimore, we were in the Airbnb, and I had put together Terapagos, and it was before it was optimized, and we're like, this deck sucks. This is terrible. And then all of a sudden things start to click. You're like, okay, it's a checkmate deck. It's not an aggressive, we're going to blow stuff up that's in front of us. You wait a couple turns and you do your thing. So that's where I do agree with you a lot, Brent, where maybe it's not fully fleshed out because it's only been technically 2 events with this new card and this new format in a sense. But as far as that goes, I think that what the next thing we should be talking about it is a deck that seems to pretty easily beat Terapagos, and that has to be the winning deck from Dortmund, which is Dragapult, but not the Dragapult you think of. No, this is not your father's Dragapult. This is Dragapult EX with the heavy Dusknoir engine. Now, Brent, have you played this deck? Have you given it any sort of games, anything into it at all, or just first glance at the deck, maybe watching back on the stream? What do you think?
Well, I've had a little prep on it, but I've also played like quite a bit of like Dragapult Pidgeot. And the thing that I'll say with Dragapult that people are underestimating is there's a lot of games you can win by just getting the one Dragapult out like really quickly. So like there's a lot of games. Well, I guess this is like one of the things as to why Pidgeot also isn't doing as well, is that a lot of the time you can get turn 2 Dragapult attack, but you can't get turn 2 Dragapult attack with Pidgeot EX as well.
Right.
And a lot of these games, you have a lot more value of getting the turn 2 Dragapult attack than just going Pidgeot and passing. which is something that you would do sometimes with Charizard, or with Charizard, you're just more likely to hit the Candy Pidgeot and the Candy Charizard because there's less pieces needed. So it does make sense that people are going to start moving away from Pidgeot in some ways. And I guess in general with Dragapult is people just have been underestimating now with Dragapult that like outside of like the Raging Bolt matchup, in a lot of matchups, if you just go Candy, Pult, attach, and then Crystal and attack, you've basically slowed down the game completely. Your opponent cannot take out your Dragapult in like half the decks, and then the next turn you can take like 4 prize cards and then get some Dracolics out, and you're already threatening to like win the game, and you haven't even done any setup yet.
Right. And then the other thing too I noticed is the deck has an insane amount of draw. If we look at the winning list, it had 2 Rotoms, which I didn't believe at the beginning why there's 2 Rotoms in there. But you have 2 Rotoms, you have 3 Dracloaks, and you're just drawing cards. Sometimes you don't even attack. You don't even have to attack, and you just come from behind and do all these kinds of things. So I think that there's some innovation that could go into that list, but not much. But Dre, I wanted to kind of bridge over to you a little bit with Dragapult. Are we thinking that this is going to be the deck to beat in these next couple of major events?
It's definitely going to get higher play. Obviously, at 1. I in limitless tournaments and on the ladder seen an increase in play. I still don't believe in Dragapult that much. I'm not a big buyer into it. I mean, Terapagos goes first and they board wipe you. It's not like Charizard. Like Charizard, they wipe both Manders. Cool. Thornton Candies are. I just self loaded. I'm attacking. You lose. Dragapult, if they wipe out both Pults, you're not playing Thornton, and if you do, you're probably not going to be able to Thornton, attach, crystal, and pivot. Like that's just asking way too much. So like I don't know. It seems pretty shaky into if a Terapagos can win the coin toss and do the thing that's supposed to do, which is go into a second turn, pop a bunch of Dusknoirs, and wipe your board. But like Brent said, get 1 Dragapult up, you're cooking, you're good. Like then you just win. But that just seems really sus if you lose the coin toss. And me, I'm not a big fan of like losing a set because I lose the coin toss. I want to play a deck that like doesn't matter if I win or lose a coin toss. Right. If I go first or second. That's why I've played decks like Lost Box, like Mew, like Zard and Guardy. Like all those decks, they don't care about the opening coin toss. That is not a factor. I can play and potentially win no matter if I go first or second. And that's kind of the way I want to be. Dragapult feels like most of the time I need to go first, and not only that, I need to like get like a good setup. I need to get my Dreepy, and I got to get like a Skull and a backup Dreepy. So, but asking for a Dreepy Poffin's not too much. I'm not too. I still have more testing to do with it, but I'm not too bought on it yet.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it is a much more difficult deck than I gave it credit for to play. At first glance, I'm like, oh, it's just a regular Dragapult deck. It's just a Charizard in a different form, right? Like you just a stage 2 deck. But when you start to get down into the nitty gritty, you're like, oh, okay, like Terapagos went first. That's fine. You can take like 4 prizes and I will still board wipe you for all 6 prizes. That's how this deck plays. So I don't think that it is for the faint of heart or for a newer skilled player, but it definitely is a deck that I would be scared of if I didn't know how to play against it going into a major event for sure. But Dre's got pockets lined with TM Devo. It's okay. Everything's fine. Going on to you, Christian, here. I want to talk to you a little bit more about Dragapult. Now, the reason that we saw Dragapult kind of get pushed out of the meta is because Regidrago was a better deck that could utilize it, but now we're seeing so much more spread come into the meta. Do you think that Dragapult being better now in this newer way that it's being built is going to push a lot of decks out of the meta that can't necessarily up or stand up to the damage counter spread?
I think the new Crystal A spec just like makes this deck way more viable to play now, and I think a lot of people, like you said, are switching off of Drago V Star, and I think a lot of those high caliber players are gonna either play Dragapult EX or they're gonna play Terapagos EX. Those 2 decks have basically like a very high skill ceiling, so it just depends which side of the coin you want to flip, and I'm scared of the non-Pidgeot version because they really can consistently get that turn 2 Dragapult swinging, and it's really scary. Those 4 prize turns are terrifying.
Hmm.
And as a Miraidon player, I really enjoy taking a free 2 to 3 prizes off of Pidgeot EX. That's usually one of my keys to victory, similar
Hmm.
to how I do that for Charizard. So if they're cutting the Pidgeot like they have in the winning list here for the most recent regional in Dortmund, then I'm gonna be scared of these Dragapult players. But so
Hmm.
I'm hoping they stick with the Pidgeot engine. I'm hoping they don't have too much faith in this list. But I don't think Dragapult's going to be as popular as Terapagos. I think Terapagos is going to be slightly more popular, just because it's a whole bunch of basics. You don't have to, have like there's a lot more searching involved with all the bird power, all the
Hmm.
owl power,
Yeah.
and I think it might just have like Tord played Terapagos. He didn't play Dragapult. So again, the net deckers are going to be more likely to play Terapagos instead. But then Dragapult won the regional, so
Right.
there could be net deckers for this. It's hard to say, but
Right.
they're both very evil spread style decks, which are very scary for newer players and players that have no techs for them. Like, are people going to start teching Jamming Tower or some Lost Vacuums to handle the Seal Stones on the Rotoms or the Crystal on the active?
Hmm.
You have to have a game plan going into Dragapult, and if you don't, they're going to run away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talking about how these decks can just like spread damage and run away with things, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Dusknoir. The Dusknoir line that came out of Shrouded Fable has been loaded into so many decks. We've got Palkia, we saw Darkrai, we saw
There's
the
Arceus.
Oh yeah, put it in Miraidon.
Arceus. Put it in
There's
Miraidon.
Charizard.
Why not?
Like, what?
We
There's
see
the Turbo
Everything.
Charizard.
exactly.
Yeah,
Put that in
sprinkle
everything.
it.
That deck needs to be put in the toxic waste dump. That
It's
deck
the
is
Frank's Red Hot of the
lit-
TCG right now. You just put
Yeah.
it on everything.
Literally, it is though. It is so good in everything. We even saw it in Raging Bolt. We saw a 1/1 line
Yeah.
come in
Wait,
Oh
the
did
my
it
top
top
goodness.
8 though? Or, wait, I don't know. Wait, I think it top 16 maybe?
They got a top placement. It was
Yeah,
At one of the
ridiculous.
events, it was a top placement. I
Yeah,
forgot
yeah.
which
I'm
one.
pretty
I gotta
sure
find
it
that
was,
list.
is it Dortmund? It was either Dortmund or Joinville. One of them had.
Pretty sure it was
Yeah, one
Dortmund.
of them.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Pretty sure it was
I didn't
Dortmund.
notice it, but someone told me it, so I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's true.
Yeah, the 1/1
Yeah,
line.
the 101 with a
Yeah,
one rare
but,
candy.
but we
Yeah.
saw this before Worlds though.
Yes,
This wasn't.
that's true.
This isn't something new.
No. So the real question is, Christian, we're gonna hop
Yep.
it back to you here. Which deck is the best Dusknoir deck in your opinion?
Ooh. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go with Terapagos.
Okay.
I think it's the best. Just you
right.
can do so much with grabbing whatever trainers you want, and that unlocks what you want to do on that turn, and you can choose to give them knockouts and hurt them, or set up a huge board wipe. I think it's Terapagos with Dusknoir.
That's fair. All right, Dre, would you agree or disagree with Christian on what the best Dusknoir deck is?
I agree. There's just too many. It's just too easy to chain them in that deck. You have so much bench space because of the Area Zero.
Yeah.
I'd say a very close second would be Palkia, the Palkia with Greninja EX.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate
But
that deck. I hate that.
the fighting type is annoying. The fighting type in that deck is annoying.
Oh,
But that's
man.
good against like Miraidon, Terapagos,
Yeah.
all the fighting types. There's a lot of Pheasantipity, like a lot of fighting type weakness right now.
All right.
That
So
could be
hitting
the
that
anti-meta
170.
pick.
That's
Yeah, but I mean, the only reason I say Terapagos over Palkia though is like the ability to not have to bench the 2 prizer until you absolutely need it.
right.
Palkia, you have to put it down because you need to evolve up. So that's just the one annoying thing with Palkia, but it's a very close second, I think, just because of the damage output that Palkia has. You pair those Dusknoirs and the board wipe ability with the ability to just blow up big numbers with Palkia, especially with so much Area Zero being in play too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's definitely Terapagos just because of you only need a basic and a bunch of owls, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. Brent, are you in agreement with these two over here, or do you have different ideas on what the best Dusknoir deck is?
I will say I haven't explored Palkia Dusknoir, but from the others, I think it is Terapagos.
Okay. Yeah. I could see, obviously, some people starting to cut Dusclops and going straight for Dusknoir in Terapagos. So that's where, like, my brain goes, if it's so good, why not just get to the good part, right? And that's why this deck is utilizing. Yes, Dre, you had a question?
No, I have a statement. You do not cut your Clops. You need the Clops. The Clops is such a good deck because there's so many games I've won through grinding this deck on the ladder where I'm just popping 50
Mm.
and that 50 into my forcing you down to one prize and jet energizing my bear up into the active and winning the game because I'm hitting essentially 290. It's perfect math. I don't need a rare candy Dusknoir. I just need my Clops.
That's fair.
And then I can use my quick search for the jet energy or for the bear or whatever. So don't cut the Clops. Please don't do that. I'm begging you, don't.
All right. Well, Brent, I have another question for you here. And this is a good one because you have some insight, at least on half of this. I want to know, do you think Charizard and Regidrago are bad decks in the format right now?
I don't know why you said half of it. The last two decks I've played are Charizard and Regidrago.
Exactly. Well, I know that you're a Charizard main for some time, but yes, Regidrago also. So I figured you had some knowledge behind this.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. So the hard thing with Charizard especially in NA, is it always feels like every single one of your losses is reserved towards the stall decks. So you have to win every other round in the tournament to make top cut. And yeah, I mean, I misplayed 2 of my rounds and I went X4. I beat everything that wasn't 2 stall decks, and apart from the 2, and the other 2 losses were just because I misplayed, honestly.
Yeah.
But that's like tournament ending with Charizard.
Right.
And that's like the really annoying thing, I guess, with Charizard, especially in NA. I'm not quite sure if it's the same in somewhere like Europe, where maybe it's different, because I don't think there is as much stall as there would be in NA.
Right.
In NA, I don't know, they just seem to love stall decks.
That they do. They definitely love stall decks.
This past week in Kin Fair, I went to a League Cup, and he was playing Lugia, and he won the League Cup, but he played against, I believe, 3 or 4 Snorlax in that tournament. And I'm like, that is insane.
He's back.
That's crazy.
Isn't that best of 1 as well?
It's also best of 1.
Best of 1 till top cut, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I've played Snorlax at a League Cup before, and I still had 10 minutes on the clock before the round was done. Every time.
Turbo Snorlax. If you play like some of these Guardy plays, that's not finishing in 30.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait for Lex to rotate, bro.
Oh, all right. So Dre, hopping over to you. Obviously, Brent thinks that Charizard and Drago still have some legs, at least to stand on, as long as they're not in front of stall. What are your thoughts here?
I've never been a Drago fan. I've never been a big Regidrago fan. I don't like the dump and draw hope I hit. What I need, and that's kind of what Regidrago feels like. And then if your V-Star hits stuff that you need and you already have other things that you want to recover in your discard, it just feels bad. So that's like was kind of my thinking going into Baltimore. It's like, yeah, Regidrago is like the BDIF, but during that format it was. During this format, it's definitely far from that. I think I saw somebody tweet, I can't remember, I think it was actually Michael Davidson on Twitter talking about, the benefits of Drago overweight its inconsistencies, because it definitely has inconsistencies, and that in the last format for Worlds and Baltimore, the power outweighed the inconsistencies. Now, you'd rather just play Dragapult, and it's a little bit more consistent. Regidrago's inconsistencies aren't outweighing its potential anymore. Zard, I think Zard's just going to be a neutrally good deck. I think every tournament, if you take Zard, you have a consistent build, and you play the deck well, you should be able to make day 2. And I don't think it's winning the tournament though. I don't think it's winning the major. Right now, there's just too many things that make it hard to get through everything, especially the block. Stall is definitely popular in NA, like Brett mentioned, but I don't think bird control is that bad. Regular control seems fine with the Dusknoir line now. If you play one canceling clone, you should always have that canceling clone in your list. I never like when people are cutting that. But I think Zard, probably okay. Drago, probably not the best. Probably just play Pole.
That's fair. And that's kind of where my head's at. Now, Christian, do you think that the reason why we're not seeing, or we might not see as much Charizard and Regidrago in the upcoming formats, is because it is so hard to stabilize these bigger 2-prize Pokemon now?
Yeah, I think right now that just because those 2 decks aren't even considered like the best decks anymore, essentially, like they've kind of fallen off in favor of these easier to set up decks like Terapagos, for example. And you could argue Dragapult is easier to set up than Charizard, depending on the list. But these days a lot of Charizard lists are getting very greedy, which
Mm.
I'm very happy to see as a Miraidon player. They're cutting down their Charmander lines. They're fitting in more ways to get Dusknoir package in there. So half the time when I'm playing against Charizard, they're only able to set up like one Charmander half the time. If they get two Poppins, then they hit the nuts and they really get to play. But if they only get one Charmander or only one Pidgey on the board, it feels pretty free. As a Miraidon player going into Charizard, that's kind of unheard of. The Drago falling off, I'm sad about because Miraidon was a fun time into Regidrago. But I think all the good players that were playing those decks are just going to switch to the new higher tier decks right now, and those
Right.
decks just happen to beat Charizard and Regidrago. So you just gotta, if it's you can't beat them, join them kind of mentality, and I think
Mm.
that's why those decks are kind of falling off in popularity and power level essentially too, because the meta isn't as well shaped for them right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now going on to one of my favorite parts of these meta forecasts, it's the rogue deck talk. We're going to talk about all of the decks that could potentially win or spike an event, do pretty well, have a deep run that aren't necessarily meta. We get to see quite a few of those over the past couple of events here, but let's talk about some that maybe nobody out there really thought of until this podcast here. Maybe you didn't think about it, but a lot of decks are close to our hearts. So, Christian, back to you. We're going to
Yeah.
go round circle. What meta deck do you think might do well this weekend?
Meta deck,
Or, I'm sorry, not meta deck, rogue deck. My apologies.
rogue deck. I would love to see Cloth pop off again. I heard it popped off
Yeah.
recently, so I'm sure there's going to be some believers who will happily give that a shot. Um, my favorite rogue deck to play right now, it's like so rogue you won't even be. You'd be able to guess it, PJ, specifically you. I don't
Mhm.
think the other homies here are going to be able to guess it.
Sure.
It's a dark type deck. Can you guess what rogue deck I'm thinking about?
A dark type deck.
Dark rogue.
Is it
The only deck I'm
Moon?
thinking of is the Loyal Trio deck.
Oh, okie dokie.
That's a good guess. That's a very good guess. No, I've been really tinkering with Arbok EX.
Oh, I do
I'm having
like
a lot of
Arbok.
fun
I
with
would not have
Arbok
guessed
EX.
that.
There's
That
this
wouldn't
really
have made my top 100
yeah.
guesses.
I said PJ would be able to guess it
Yes,
because
yeah.
he's a big. I interviewed him recently and he said
Yeah.
he loves Team Rocket.
I do.
But so there's this nasty Spiritomb you can play in it, where if you
Mhm.
get knocked out, you can get any card in your deck. So you grab Unfair Stamp, you Unfair Stamp them, you set up the Arbok and delete their hand, and it's so much fun playing that on live. I have to test it in real life though. That's gonna
Yeah.
be what I'll be tormenting my locals with.
Yes.
But a more serious rogue deck that I'm sure has a lot of fans behind it is Hisuian Zoroark V-Star.
Yes.
I think that's a deck that has a lot of potential, but there's not going to be a lot of good players playing it, so there's not going to be a lot of cooks in the kitchen trying to make the optimal 60.
That's fair.
But I think Cloth would be cool to see.
Gotcha. We're sending
Yeah.
Cloth. Full send on
Yeah,
Cloth.
sending Cloth.
All right, Dre. Any rogue decks on your mind right now that you might think of that can spike an event here?
I think the Ursaluna, the Baby Blood Moon deck is actually in a pretty good spot right now with how many small things are in the format and then how many fighting weak things are in the format right now. Being a single prize deck that can spread damage and then take big Okos on top of that seems in a pretty decent spot right now. So I think that could be something. I don't know if anybody even played it in these other two majors, but just thinking about fighting type weakness, when we're thinking about Cloth, I'm like, well, I think Blood Moon kind of does it a little smoother theoretically, but we'll have to see if anybody picks it up and takes it. But I would like to see that deck. I think it could actually be a pretty good pick, pretty good
That
sleeper.
deck is so cool. I played against that deck and I was like, damn, this is actually like really competitive.
Yeah,
Especially because it's hitting me for weakness half the time.
I have a local that loves playing these like off meta decks.
Mhm.
And he specifically has played Cloth. I beat him in top 4 with Zard. And I have no idea how. I just got perfect. Like it went to game 3. He got one of the games off me. Game 3, I go perfect. I went first. Perfect. Candy Pidgeot, Candy Zard, and just boom, boom, boom. Was able to Dusknoir, KO. Bidoof was never drawing cards. So I had a perfect game 3 to win that set. But it's like that's scary. And then he also plays the Blood Moon Ursaluna deck too. He'll pivot between the two, and like that's the only reason why that deck's even on my radar is because shout out Doug in my locals, like bro, like brings the spice, and so now I know about those decks. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, Ursaluna, not bad.
Yeah. Hey, were we gonna see a Dusknoir Ursaluna deck coming out? You
Ooh.
could see it. It could be a real
Maybe
thing.
Doug's gonna cook it up.
Yeah. Platinum damage counters with your Dusclops. Who cares about Dusknoir? Just keep going. All right, Brent, on to you. Do you have any rogue decks that you're thinking of?
Well, I think the amount of decks that aren't considered rogue at the moment that are like actually playable is insane. I
Yes.
think there are decks that like you
There's
would
so
consider real decks that have like 2% play rate at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Like I'm not sure if I'd really throw any rogue decks there. But I will say, like I think in general, people aren't respecting these turn 2 ninja attacks enough. Like we've seen this with the Palkia Dusknoir deck,
Right.
and like in general, the amount of mana fees is quite low. A lot of these decks like Dragapult and Charizard are not going to be the best at dealing with turn 2 ninjas at the moment. And even going first, they're not setting up consistently on turn 2. So if you go second, still turn 2 ninja is going to be good. I think like out of those, like even Lost Box is not looking that bad. If Ancient Box is basically non-existent and Drago play rate is tanking, then you could just see people playing decks like Turbo Lost. Other deck that I think is pretty good is like I actually think Miraidon's like in a pretty decent spot. I think it's like pretty solid into the Terapagos if you just go for the Iron
Don't tell them.
Hands.
Don't tell them.
No, you're in a good spot, man. I feel like you should just ship Miraidon. It's not bad. It's really
I don't
not
consider
bad.
it rogue. That's why.
Yeah, it's not rogue, but
Yeah.
but I mean, it's definitely under the radar.
I know what
at
you
the
mean.
moment.
Yeah.
And saying that Lost Box is kind of considered rogue right now. If
I
we
know.
think about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Some,
saying.
some people
The
are
play rate's
standing up
not
in their
existent.
chairs. They're cheering. No more Lost Box.
Yeah, no joke. I think the other probably just 2 or 3 days ago, if you hit me on the ladder and you saw me playing Lost Boxes, because like I just wanted to feel something. I literally did. I got tired of I just keep spamming between Zard and Terapagos, just spamming matches. I'm like, God, none of this is
can't
making me
select
feel
any
good. I might just make a
flowers.
comfy deck.
I
Yeah,
do
once
have
it
one
matches.
rogue deck.
Yes.
Once it matches.
What's
I
up?
have one rogue deck I want to add in because Brent mentioned the cuts in Manaphy. I posted a Miraidon like a TED talk about Miraidon tonight, and I mentioned how I've been testing Magnezone V and V Star because a lot of decks are cutting Manaphy, and a lot of decks are also getting greedy like Charizard. And so if they're hardly setting up and they don't have Manaphy, and if you're going first as Miraidon, you set up the Magnezone V, you're gonna have a good chance of getting that turn 2 Magnezone V Star and hit 2 for 90. And if they're putting down a Manaphy, that means they're not putting down another Charmander or another Pidgey. So it's like good luck playing the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, Magnezone V Star actually is my real sleeper rogue deck that
Yeah.
has actual potential.
Yeah. I was gonna say one of your locals or semi-locals, Brent, Tim Danklin was posting some lists.
He's not a local.
Not a local.
We have 3 cities. We have like 5 cities that really play, and he's not in my cities. So
Okay,
we're not
that's fair.
locals.
That's fair. But I was gonna say
It's like saying Vancouver is local to
Yes,
Toronto.
You're countrymen. This is countrymen.
it's all
Some people think it
yeah,
is.
local countrymen. It's fine. Some people
Canada is literally Vancouver and Toronto
That's
to
right.
me. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's all.
Some people think I live in New York
Valid.
City because I live in New York. It's all the same. But regardless, Tim was posting lists of the Wellspring Ogerpon with the Sparkling Crystal to basically do the same thing for 1 energy attachment. Super funny, very cool. I like a lot of Tim's ideas. Obviously, Alex Shemansky and I were playing the Tim Danklin Darker Eye list at Baltimore. So I think that's kind of cool. But you're right, Brent. I mean, everybody here, you're absolutely right. A lot of not rogue decks or meta decks previously are considered rogue now. We look at Lost Box is one of them. Lost Box Giratina is another one. We won't talk about that one too much. We look at Gardevoir, seems rogue-ish right now, and obviously Miraidon is kind of considered rogue, but not rogue. It's teetering in there. But all of these decks that we see, I know it was brought up in the conversation, but I think that maybe seeing something like just a straight Greninja EX build potentially, something that abuses the Dusknoir line, because I saw not only did Dragapult do well in Japan, but there was some sprinkling of Greninja for some time in between as the meta shifted. So maybe we will see something like that come out where it's just a heavier line, lower on the Palkia side, but heavier on the Greninja side. And even some Frostlass stuff. But I will still say that I think that any sort of stall archetype definitely has to be respected in this new format, regardless of whether it's like a Pidgeot control version or just a straight up Snorlax stall. I really do think that people need to start respecting it. And we aren't going to talk about Iron Thorns. We'll save that for the Josh Frank Masterclass. But Iron Thorns is still a deck that seems to be doing okay in online tournaments at least. But we could see some Crushing Hammers come out. I think Crushing Hammers might be really, really beneficial in certain types of decks in the future. So that's my hot take here for the Rogue section. Now, speaking of hot things, we're going to go around circle here again with all of our guests. And since it's October, we're going to talk about some fall treats we get. And everybody loves fall treats. So, Brent, we're going to start off with you. What is your favorite fall treat for the season here?
Okay, well, this is a bit awkward for me because it's not fall for me, it's spring.
Yep.
So, it's like, I don't know, am I meant to respond for a treat that I would have around this time of the year?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know, I guess I would have some kind of candy or chocolate because Halloween time.
That's fair. Okay. Is there a favorite candy that you like?
It's really hard. I feel like if it's sugar, I'm down.
Real.
I don't think I'm that fussy.
All right. So Dre, off to you. Is there a favorite fall treat that you enjoy?
Pumpkin or sweet potato pie. That's my bag during this time. Like, you guys can keep all the pumpkin spice stuff, all the flavorings of it. Just give me the pie, bro. Like,
I'm down.
It's classic, so good, and I can easily access it for like a whole 2 to 3 months, which is awesome.
Caramel apple pie. That's my jam. Talk to me, Christian. What do you think?
Apple pie or apple crisp with vanilla ice cream. S tier. And for all my Canadians out there, for Halloween season, I love O. Henry chocolate bars. Those are great too.
That's fair. Very fair.
No idea what that is.
And O. Henry. You've never had an O.
Okay,
Henry?
I'll bring him with me to Louisville if you're there.
I'll be there.
Sick.
I'll be there. I think all of us are there.
So I'll bring everybody to O. Henry. Everybody gets it.
Yeah, we gotta get a picture of us eating the O. Henrys at Louisville for sure.
Check out the TSSX profile with the O. Henry snapshot. We'll get it on there.
Brent's coming soon.
All right, everybody. Well, this is the time where we're going to give special shout outs to everybody that helps make this podcast possible here on the Shuffle Squad. Shout out to all of our sponsors. You can check them all out down in the description below. Make sure you're clicking all those links and going to the websites. You can even check out our website, theshufflesquad.com, where we host all kinds of videos and articles and things like that. And if you want to check out more articles, you can also check us out on Medify now. We are offering groups over there where you can access all kinds of guides and walkthroughs, as well as videos from all of our pros that help you get better at Pokemon TCG, because that's what we all love here. Now I'm going to kick it off to all of my co-hosts on this one for the Meta Forecast. We're going to start off with you, Brent. Where can the people find you online, and any shout-outs you'd like to give?
You can find me on Twitter, like twitter.com/wet_goose. I have a YouTube channel now, but honestly, I don't remember what the link is. I just uploaded a video today, so I don't even remember the URL. But yeah, my YouTube channel is Brent Tonisson, so you can check that out.
Solid. Nice. Very cool. All right. Dre, any shout outs and places people can find you?
Of course. Well, major shout out to the Shuffle Squad, obviously. Shout out to all the sponsors that make, all the stuff happen. You can see all the katanas over there on my desk. Love those things, So shout out all the sponsors, help make, TSS thing. Also, follow me on Twitter, King Dre Clout. Just like it is on the screen, C1OUT. Same name to find me on Twitch, Clout TCG on YouTube. I offer personal one-on-one coaching on Medify, and you'll find my articles also on the Shuffle Squad side of things. So if you're interested in hearing more from me, you can find me there.
Very cool. And Christian, last again, but not least.
Yep. Oh, yeah, you can find me on everywhere, Sneaker Talk CA or Sneaker Talk TCG, specifically for the trading card stuff. I just dropped a 52-minute Miraidon video. If you know anyone who wants to play Miraidon, check it out. And shout out to everybody who's always positive in the Pokemon community. There's so much negativity on my timeline, but there's a lot of positivity as well. So shout out to the people who continue to support other trainers. I love it.
That's right. And again, I'm PJ here, kicking it off with the Shuffle Squad every week for your Meta Forecast. As long as there is a major event, we'll be covering it for you. So if you like this video, make sure you're hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel if you want to see more competitive Pokemon TCG content. But for now, we will catch you next time on the Shuffle Squad.
You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.